time to take a trip back to 1968 in the Wizard shop. We'll take a look at this really sweet Firebird 400. Let's take a look. So many of you have been seeing this car in the background. It was on the 4-post lift that bin pack was nice enough to supply us with. Actually, all these lifts are very, very handy. We really enjoy them. This is not showroom Concours quality, but it is very nice. I've got a list of issues the customer has. We'll take a look at those here in a little bit, and we'll also just check the car out. I haven't seen one of these 400s in person before, the convertible Pontiac Firebird 400. I've seen a lot of these Firebirds on the road, but it's really neat to see this particular model. Let's go ahead and open the hood. A lot of this is already apart. Junior Mint has started working on it. We've got the authorization to move forward and go ahead and start with the repairs. We're doing the front main seal, the oil pan gasket, the valve cover gaskets. We're going to replace the power steering gearbox because it is leaking in all directions from the gearbox. A new harmonic balancer, rear axle pinion seal, and the rear axle cover gasket. Those are the extent of the leaks. There were a few different engines you could have gotten in this vehicle. There would have been an inline 6, there would have been a 326 V8, and then this is the big 400. Which of all the models that they sold, half of them was this model with the 400, almost 38,000 of these in 1968. It has a little over 320 horsepower and about 410 pound-feet of torque, I think is what they said it had. Now that's gross numbers, that's not today's numbers that we use, which is net horsepower. So really, how much power does this have in today's world? Probably 250, 260 horsepower, and probably 375 torque, somewhere around in there. And that is the original style 4-barrel. It is not the original 4-barrel. You can see it's been replaced. Most everything's stock on this car. It's not been hopped up or modified, which you guys know that's how I have a car. Not into tuning and tweaking and doing all the weird stuff. I like them to look like they were when they were new. Let me show you guys something on the harmonic balancer that's something you really need to check on, especially on older cars. Let me grab the balancer. So here we have the harmonic balancer off the front of this engine, and it would be very easy to overlook this if you were looking for leaks and you're just like, oh yeah, it looks fine, looks like it's doing great, but it's not. There is a rubber sleeve between this piece of metal and the outer ring, and as you can see, it's pooched out, sticking out. Some of the pieces are missing. We'll flip it over. Look at that, guys, the rubber is deteriorated. Watch this. Just comes off. This harmonic balancer is on the verge of failure, which could do a minor amount of damage to the vehicle and make it run really bad. While we have this apart, it makes sense to go ahead and just get a new one. Here we have a brand new one. Let's take a look at the rubber ring on it. It's concentric, it's equal all the way around. It looks like it should. Well, because it's brand new. And here's the other side. The rubber is perfect all the way around. That's very likely the original harmonic balancer. It's lasted since 1968, so really it's done very well. So we talk about the old days and say, oh, these old cars are built like really well. They don't build stuff like this anymore. These were so easy to work on, but they really weren't. And even at the shop I worked at in the past, my mentor, which was a 40-year Chrysler Master Tech, he said the same thing. He said, I used to think these cars were the ticket. These were so easy. I could work on these blindfolded. But he said, after I've worked on modern computerized fuel-injected cars, I realized these things are a pain in the tush to work on. You can take an AC compressor like we're doing on the Mercury Marauder. You can have it off in 30 minutes. On these older cars, it's brackets on top of brackets, and then there's brackets on top of those brackets bolted to the block, and then you have to take this off to get that bracket off, and it takes an hour, over an hour. There's lots of things on here that you can't hook a computer to. There's some of the guys that work in the shop here, they're very focused in the computerized fuel-injected world, and when you hand them the keys to this car, they say, hell no, car wizard, I'm not working on that. I don't know anything about distributors. I don't know anything about tuning the carburetor, and I don't want to know about them. I don't blame them because there's really not a whole lot of these on the road. I understand these cars, but working on these cars is a dying breed. You don't take this to the Pontiac dealership because they will tell you to turn around and go back where you came from. We don't work on those, is what they'll tell you. So that's really a strange thing, to find somebody who can work on this car and you can trust them not to scratch your paint, not to tear your car up, and to get it back running better than it was when you got it and not leaking anymore. So to think these are easier to work on, the good old days, not really. Not as much as you would think it would be. Let's go ahead and take a look around the car. We're leaving the hood open a little bit because it's on the lift, and as soon as we're done filming, Junior Mint's going to jump right back in and continue working. We do see that there's a little emblem or something missing there. There's the beautiful, iconic 60s Firebird front end. Late 60s, I should say. Really, as far as the paint and body is concerned, this is a really good survivor. It's not dinged up or beat up. There's our Firebird. There's the actual Firebird emblem. And we can see on the hood it says 400, denoting the 400 model. You can see a little paint chip here, which probably was done by opening the door and hitting something. There's little chrome slits for decoration. Again, they're not functional, but they add some character to the vehicle. Tires look fairly new. They're in good shape. They're just standard street radial tires, no racing or anything weird like that. Here's little, I believe those are illuminated Pontiac symbols for the side markers. Here we have the Firebird emblem again. It's got little slits for brake lights, reverse lights. Really neat design in the back. It's got a simple bumper. These are not the mandated 5-mile-an-hour bumpers, or they're literally a park bench where you can sit on them. This is not the case back in 1968. If you want to take a millennial or a Gen Z and throw them for a loop, give them the keys to this car and say, hey, I'll give you $50 if you just go down the road and fill it up with gas. They'll walk around in circles from this thing, and pretty soon you'll get a phone call. Bro, I don't know where the gas cap is. I looked all over the place. I don't see nothing to pull. There's no latches. You got to think back in 1968. Right there in the back. A lot of cars in this era is behind the license plate. You tilt the license plate down and there's your gas cap. Just like it was on my '69 Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham. I've done that joke a few times, guys, and it works every single time. Every time. Down this side, again, you can see it's not been caved in or been any accidents. It is missing one of the little chrome trim pieces here. That's probably an eBay item, and the customer could probably put that on themselves. The chrome on this vehicle is in really good shape. It's not pitted. It's not rusted through or anything. It's really pretty decent. Needs a little work here with the antenna. We'll take care of that while it's here. But again, those are problems I don't fault this car. I don't say, wow, what a piece of junk. It's not a piece of junk. You're going to find stuff like this that needs to be fixed. That's why it's here. And along this side as well, it's not beat up. Let's take a look at something down here I want to show you guys. It's very interesting. Does that look like a disc brake? No. They're actually pretty good. A lot of people complain and say, bro, you got to do a disc conversion. That's junk. No, they're not junk. If they're properly set up, where there's no play in the brake pedal, everything's doing well, they'll lurch you into the windshield if you hit these brakes really hard. They work very good. They actually do. They're just not good at prolonged racing where you've got constant loads on the brakes. It'll build up gases and stuff in there. They're not good for that, but they are good brakes.
So hey everybody, here's the interior, and then we look at that to gauge. It goes to 160 miles an hour. Don't know if it'll really hit that, but if we can look past the needle there, it does say it says 79,101 miles. Now, don't know if that's 179,000, 279,000, but it could be that 79,000, because this thing is looking awesome. Look at that dash. Look at that grill. That little grill up there, the speaker grill, not even one of those little, louvers is broken. The entire dash is in amazing shape. As we move our way down, look at this. This is looking fabulous. Now, this is the era of car where it is painted metal. So this area here is painted metal, which makes it very good for, durability. Maybe not so good if you were being a wreck and, got bonked by it. It is missing the radio, but of course that's a very easy to repair item. It's got those classic slider HVAC selectors. It does have a very fun analog clock back there, which don't know if it's working or not because it is not midnight when we are filming this, I promise you, or noon, neither. Simple gear select with a faux wood finish. If we look at the seats, got a simple vinyl seat, and this one looks really good. The one I'm sitting in, not so good. It does need to be repaired. The door panels are really good. It does have a lovely Firebird emblem on this door, and there is one on the other side as well. If you also look up at the controls, they're pretty simple. We have the cigarette lighter, the ignition switch. We move to the other side. It has the pull for the lights and the washers. That's it. If we look down below, we've got the e-brake, the parking brake, and then we've got the little disc down there where my foot's tapping. That little guy was how you changed your high beams to low beams. No controls up here. The only little arm on here is for the blinker, and that is it. So really pretty simple, okay? Again, a very elegant, very skinny spindled steering wheel with horn selectors on all three spindles. This is, of course, obviously before the era of airbags, so we don't have the big airbag centerpiece. So it's got this very small, and it makes the steering wheel look much larger, even though it's really not. As I got out real quick, you can see that the seat does need to be, redone, but that's easy enough to do. An upholstery shop can easily do that for the customer. And these are pretty easy to, remove from the car. If we look at the back seat, not much going on back here. Looks like it's in really good shape, and it's got a fair amount of leg room back here. Doesn't look like they've been used a whole lot, neither did the passenger seat. We can definitely tell that this was definitely driven a lot. So this is the convertible top. It does have some wear on it, you can see, and the wizard did check it out. The customer did request that to be inspected. It is an automatic top, and it is in good shape. But the car looks so much better with the top down, so it's back for summer driving. Let's put this thing in the air.
So go ahead and take a look underneath this really sweet Firebird. One of the things you're going to see is that this car has been driven probably all over America. You can see that it's had some small impacts right here on this forward horn that comes off of the cross member. You can see some scrapes and dents where some parking stalls or who knows what was hit. Here's our drum brakes. Sway bar bushings and links look good. The shocks are actually dry, which is great. Everything looks good there. Nothing loose. Nothing loose there either. It's got new hoses, brake hoses on it. We've put those on. The old ones are cracked and dry rotted. We did put the new sway bar links on it as well. Those were looking pretty bad. But here we can see our steering gearbox. It's like a sea crustacean. It's leaking from every orifice. And in today's age, I can get a good reman unit and replace it as much or possibly cheaper than me removing it and taking it all apart and all the labor and parts and pieces. It doesn't make sense for me to rebuild it in-house financially. Here we can see some more denting, or something happened here. Somebody may have tried to jack that up in the past, and they dented it up in there a little bit. It really doesn't hurt it that bad. We're going to be removing the oil pan to do oil pan gasket and a rear main seal, so when we have it out, we'll straighten that up a little bit. And right here, since it's been hit by whatever they hit, it's dented where the drain plug goes. It doesn't seal very well, and you can see it's already leaking on the ground. We'll move back to the transmission. It looks to me to be a 400 transmission to handle the power that this thing puts out. I don't think you'd put a 350 behind this. We've got the torque converter already loose. We're going to remove the transmission and do some resealing. That'll also give us some room to just lift up the motor just enough to get the oil pan out of there. As you can see, the oil pan is very close to the cross member. It's going to get some new motor mounts because you can see it's collapsed. And we'll take care of all those issues for the customer. Move on back here. The drive shaft is missing because, again, we're going to be removing the transmission, so Junior Mint has already started doing that. The pinion seal has been done already. We'll remove the flange and put a new seal in. And you can see that Junior Mint had a little mark that he cut into there to put it right back where it was so he doesn't over tighten the crush sleeve. Really not a whole lot of rust under here, Mrs. Wizard.
No, it's amazing.
Rear shocks are nice and dry. When you're looking at drum brakes, always look at the bottom for brake fluid coming out of the bottom. If there is any, that means the wheel cylinders are leaking. These are dry. Looks like somebody put some helper springs or something in the past. Maybe the springs were getting kind of weak from age. There's our dual exhaust and our big gas tank. We also resealed this cover that was leaking pretty bad with a new gasket. It has fresh oil in it. So that's pretty much it for the underneath. There's not a whole lot of weird evap or anything, weird things going on in these cars. It's really pretty simple. Let's go ahead and lower it down. So it's pretty hot in Kansas this week. It's going to be near 100 with a heat index of 110. One thing to remember with these older cars, think back to 1968. You just bought this car and it's super hot outside. It's, oh my God, it's so hot. And guess what? No air conditioning. As you've seen when Mrs. Wizard was looking at the HVAC controls, there was none for AC because there is no AC. You could have purchased AC on these vehicles, but many of them were opted without AC like this one. Maybe they would rather put money into the engine and more power and faster, and they weren't concerned about AC. It could have been that they lived in a climate in the northern part of the country where it was a lot cooler. But I would not want to drive this car this week in Kansas. Oh my goodness, it would be so hot, especially with the black interior. Another complaint the customer had is after a long period of driving in warm weather, he parks the car in the garage and he just says, this thing just smells like gas. He says, I don't see any leaks or anything, but it's just a really gassy smell. And we called him and helped him to understand that's normal for these old cars. Like I've asked you guys in the past, especially you older guys my age and older, remember back to a Kmart parking lot in the 70s or the 80s where these cars were still running strong and there was no evap systems really. And it's hot like it is today and you're walking through the parking lot. What do you smell? Close your eyes, guys. You can smell it. Gas fumes galore. All the cars stink like gas. There's no evap system for the gas tanks. There's just a vent which vents those fumes to the atmosphere. Your carburetor from the engine heat is literally boiling the gas, venting it into the engine bay. There's nothing you can do about it. That's just the way these old cars are. Hoovy, which Tyler from Hoovy's Garage actually experienced this, him being a younger guy. He bought a few older cars like this and he called me up and he's like, Wizard, my garage smells like a gas tank. What happened to my car? What's wrong? We got to check in, got to find out nothing was wrong. It's just the gas tank is venting the fumes directly into his garage, which was really common back then. People didn't think much of it. They're like, that's what cars do. Today we don't accept that because our 2012, 2020 car does not do that. It's pretty odorless, really. After we got that handled with Tyler, he fully understood. He was like, wow, I'm going to park this car outside from now on. I'm not doing this. So keep that in mind. Buy these older cars. Without an evap system, you're going to be smelling some gas fumes on a hot day like today. So like I mentioned, we're halfway through working on this car. We still got a ways to go. After we're filming here, I'm going to let Junior Mint jump back in and have fun. He really enjoys working on these older cars. He's a young guy, but he desires to learn this older stuff. He really wants to learn it, so I applaud him for that. He's also on Crazy D's channel if you want to check him out there, working on tractors and things. He likes the older equipment. He's like an 80-year-old guy in a 19-year-old body. It's kind of interesting. If you're curious what kind of tools we're going to use to work on this Firebird, check my Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut. We really appreciate it. Yes, we do have Ferrari videos coming. We have to get some work done on it, but before we can work on the Ferrari, we need to get the Lambo done, the Firebird done, the Zippy, which is Tyler's car, done, the Marauder. Now the Black Esprit S4S has showed up ready for its radiator installation after rebuild, so we now got that to do. We got the Alfa Romeo. It's just the list keeps going, guys. And the customers are calling, where are we at on my car? Where are we at on my car? I'm not going to say, I didn't work on your car because I'm working on my Ferrari. That won't go over very well at all. So make sure to hit the subscribe button. There's many projects to come. Thanks for watching.